You ever notice how people love to talk? They'll tell you what they ate, what they bought, what they're struggling with, every single detail of their life. And yet, the more they talk, the weaker they look. Because here's the truth, nobody likes to admit, nobody cares about your problems. Not really. Sure, they might nod, give you a polite, oh, that's tough. But the second you walk away, they're back in their own world, thinking about their own issues. Now imagine this. What happens when you stop telling people about your struggles? When you stop broadcasting your pain, like a radio station, suddenly you become different, stronger, mysterious. People start wondering, how does this person handle so much without saying a word? That curiosity, that silence, it builds respect. I want you to sit with this question right now. Are you feeding your problems by talking about them, or are you building yourself by staying silent? Because the moment you stop explaining your pain to the world is the moment you take back your power. Here's the truth you need to understand. Most people don't care about your problems, and that might sound cold. It might even sound a little harsh, but it's reality. Think about it. Everyone you know is fighting their own battles. They've got bills to pay, relationships that aren't working, insecurities that eat away at them in the dark. They wake up every day already carrying the weight of their own world. So when you come to them with your problems, what do you think happens? Do you think they put their life on hold to carry yours? No. They might listen for a moment. They might nod their head, say something comforting, maybe even give you a little advice. But the second you walk away, they go right back into their own storm. And here's where you've got to wake up. Every time you unload your problems onto people who cannot solve them, you waste your energy. You think you're venting, you think you're being real. But what you're really doing is placing yourself in the role of the victim over and over again. You're training yourself to believe that the only way to deal with what you're going through is to talk about it. And you're teaching people around you that you are defined by your struggles. You're making yourself smaller in their eyes. Because people don't respect constant complaining. They respect strength. They respect the person who can stand tall even when life is trying to drag them down. Now, I'm not saying you should never speak. I'm not saying you should bottle everything up inside. What I am saying is this: be very careful about who you give your problems to. Because for most people, your problems are just noise. They'll listen, sure, but they're not thinking about helping you. They're thinking about themselves. You've done it too. Someone comes to you talking about their drama, and while you're nodding, your mind is already somewhere else. You're thinking about your deadlines, your phone notifications, your own struggles. It's human nature. We are wired to survive our own lives first. That's not selfish, it's just reality. So why does this matter for you? Because the moment you realize that most people don't care, you stop expecting them to care. And that's when everything shifts. You stop wasting energy looking for sympathy. You stop chasing validation. You stop broadcasting your struggles to anyone who will listen. And instead, you start owning your problems. You start carrying them differently. Not as a burden you want everyone to acknowledge, but as a challenge you are determined to overcome. Let me ask you this. Think about the strongest people you know, the ones you look up to, the ones you respect. Do they constantly complain about their problems? Do they announce every hardship to the world? No. They carry themselves with a kind of quiet discipline. They don't dump their struggles on everyone. They deal with it. And that's why you admire them. Because deep down, you know strength isn't about being loud with your pain. Strength is about being powerful in silence. Here's the danger when you tell everyone about your problems. You start to believe that attention equals healing, but it doesn't. Attention is temporary. You'll get the sympathy, you'll get the I'm sorry, but then what? The problem is still there. The situation hasn't changed. You're still stuck in the same place, except now you've trained yourself to rely on people's reactions instead of your own resilience. And the worst part? People start to know you as the one with the problems. That becomes your identity. And once people put you in that box, it's hard to climb out. You've got to understand, life is not a stage where everyone is waiting to hear your pain. It's a battlefield where everyone is trying to survive their own. So when you keep unloading your problems on others, you're not lightening your load. You're just showing the world your weak spots. And not everyone is kind. Some people will use your weakness against you. Some will pretend to care while secretly feeling superior to you. Others will store that information away and bring it up at a time when it benefits them, not you. Think about how powerful it is when you walk into a room and people don't know what you're going through. They see you strong, they see you composed, they have no idea how many storms you've faced and survived. That's respect, that's strength, that's power. Silence makes people curious. Curiosity builds respect, and respect builds influence. You don't get that by complaining. You get that by keeping your problems close and your solutions closer. The truth is, the only people who truly care are a very small circle. If you're lucky, maybe one or two, the rest are bystanders in your life. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. Stop expecting the world to carry your burdens. Stop expecting people to drop everything for your pain, because they won't. Not because they're bad people, but because they're busy carrying their own. When you understand this, you stop living for sympathy and you start living for growth. You stop saying, why me? And start saying, try me. That's the shift. That's the transformation. The day you stop telling everyone about your problems is the day you start showing the world your strength. And that is the moment people begin to respect you, not for what you've been through, but for how you carry it. There's something you need to understand about this world. Not everybody wants what's best for you. Not everybody claps when you win. And not everybody who smiles at you has your back. Some people are waiting for you to hand them the ammunition they need to bring you down. And what's the easiest ammunition to give away? Your problems, your struggles, the very things you think you're sharing in the name of honesty. We live in a culture where people overshare everything. They'll go online and write an entire essay about how they're depressed, how they're struggling, how someone betrayed them. They think that by opening up, they're connecting, but what they don't realize is this: the moment you hand the world your pain, you also hand the world your weakness. And there are always eyes watching, some of them kind, yes, but many of them calculating. Some people are just looking for that crack in your armor so they can slip in and use it against you. Think about it. Maybe at work you confide in a colleague about how stressed you are, how much pressure you're under, how close you feel to burning out. Do you think that stays between you and them? No. It finds its way into whispers. Suddenly, your boss hears that you're struggling. Suddenly, when a big opportunity comes, your name isn't on the list because people think you can't handle it. Not because you aren't capable, but because you gave someone information they turned into doubt. Or let's go deeper. Maybe in your personal life, you tell a friend every single detail of your relationship problems. You vent, you unload, you cry, you think you're just releasing stress, but people remember what you say. And one day, maybe in an argument, maybe in a moment of anger, that same friend throws your words back at you. They weaponize your vulnerability. Because once you release your problems into the world, you don't own them anymore. Other people do, and they can twist them any way they want. That's why you've got to be strategic, not secretive. Strategic. You've got to protect your inner life like it's gold, because it is. Not everyone deserves to know what keeps you awake at night. Not everyone earns the right to hear what's breaking you down. That's private. That's sacred. You can share pieces of yourself, sure, but you don't hand over the whole map to your weaknesses. That's like giving someone a knife and showing them exactly where to stab. Some of you have been burned by this already. You've told someone something in confidence, and then you found out they used it against you. That betrayal stings. And it should, because it's a wake-up call. Not everyone in your circle is in your corner. Not everyone in your audience is clapping for you. And when you forget that, you set yourself up to be blindsided. There's a reason the strongest people move in silence. They don't advertise their struggles because they know the world isn't always kind. They know the world doesn't always want to see them rise. So they carry their problems with dignity, not because they're trying to look perfect, but because they understand the cost of exposing their weaknesses to the wrong people. Ask yourself this: how many times have you handed someone a piece of your struggle, only to regret it later? How many times have you looked back and thought, I shouldn't have told them that? That regret is your instinct telling you to wise up, to stop giving away information that could harm you later. Because here's the truth: the more people know about your problems, the more control they have over your story. And if they control your story, they can rewrite it in ways that don't serve you. You've got to learn the difference between sharing and oversharing. Sharing means you're intentional. You're talking to someone who can actually help you, guide you, or support you in a way that leads to solutions. Oversharing is when you just throw your problems out to anyone willing to listen. And most people who listen are not listening to help. They're listening to judge. They're listening to compare. They're listening to store that information for later use. It's not about being paranoid. It's about being smart. The less people know about your weaknesses, the harder it is for them to manipulate you. The less they know about your struggles, the more they have to respect your presence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. When you choose carefully who gets to hear your truth, you're not bottling up, you're protecting your power. And here's something else. When you tell the wrong people your problems, you're not just risking betrayal, you're also risking misdirection. Some people will give you advice that keeps you stuck, not because they know better, but because your pain makes them feel better about themselves. There are people who thrive on seeing others broken because it makes their own brokenness easier to swallow. You need to see that for what it is. Not everyone offering you a shoulder to cry on wants you to get back up stronger. Some just want you to stay small so they can feel tall. That's why you've got to train yourself to pause before you speak. Ask yourself, does this person deserve this piece of me? Can they actually help me solve this? Or am I just handing over my pain to be judged, to be twisted, or to be used later? 9 times out of 10, silence is the smarter choice. Because once you keep your problems to yourself, you hold all the cards. No one can play a game with your secrets if they don't know them. So protect yourself. Protect your dignity. Protect your story. Because every time you give away your problems carelessly, you give away your power. And you're too valuable, too strong, too capable to be handing pieces of yourself to people who don't deserve them. The world doesn't need to know your struggles. The world needs to see your strength. And that strength begins the moment you stop letting your problems be anyone else's weapon. Have you ever noticed what happens when you keep talking about your problems? They get heavier. They get bigger. It's like every time you retell the story, every time you replay the pain, every time you complain about the same thing, you're giving that problem more energy. You're feeding it, and what you feed will always grow. You think you're releasing stress, but what you're really doing is making the problem stronger because you keep bringing it to life with your words. That's the trap most people fall into. They believe that talking endlessly about their struggles is some kind of therapy. But here's the truth. If all you're doing is talking, you're not healing. You're rehearsing pain, rehearsing struggle, rehearsing weakness. And the more you rehearse it, the deeper it gets wired into your mind. You turn your problems into part of your identity. You become the person who is always going through something. And eventually people stop taking you seriously. Not because they're cruel, but because they see that you don't want solutions. You just want attention. Here's what you need to understand. Your energy is like currency. You only have so much of it each day, and you get to decide where to spend it. If you spend it on repeating your problems, you're broke before you even start building solutions. But if you shift that same energy into action, into discipline, into strategy, suddenly the problem starts to shrink. It doesn't disappear overnight, but it stops controlling you because you're no longer fueling it with endless words. You're fueling your strength with decisive action. Think about this in your own life. How many hours have you wasted sitting with friends venting about the same issue over and over? You complain about the job you hate. You complain about the relationship that isn't working. You complain about the opportunities you never get. And the whole time you convince yourself you're processing it. But are you? Or are you just recycling the same story while nothing changes? Because here's the truth. Complaining doesn't move you forward. Action does. Complaining is energy drain. Action is energy shift. And the difference between those two is everything. Because one keeps you trapped and the other sets you free. The people who rise in life aren't the ones who sit around telling everyone about their problems. They're the ones who feel the problem, acknowledge it, and then redirect all that energy into doing something about it. They take that frustration and use it as fuel. They take that disappointment and use it as motivation. They take what was meant to drain them and flip it into power. That's what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. You ever notice how some people never seem to run out of energy? They're always moving, always building, always pushing forward. It's not that they have more hours in the day. It's that they've mastered the discipline of where to put their energy. They don't waste it on constant complaining. They don't waste it on people who can't help them. They don't waste it on explaining their pain to the world. They guard their energy like treasure. And because of that, they're always able to create momentum. On the other hand, look at the people who are always drained. They always look tired, always sound defeated, always seem stuck in the same cycle. That's not just life happening to them, that's them misusing their energy. They've trained themselves to pour their energy into complaining, gossiping, and retelling the same stories of pain. And what do they have to show for it? Nothing but exhaustion, nothing but the same problems that never get solved. Because energy without direction is wasted. You've got to start asking yourself, where am I spending my energy? Am I spending it on words or am I spending it on action? Am I feeding the problem or am I feeding the solution? Because you can't do both. Every word you speak either drains you or strengthens you. Every choice you make either keeps you stuck or moves you forward. That's why silence can sometimes be the most powerful move. When you stop talking about the problem, you starve it. And when you starve it, you free up energy to focus on building a way out. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop giving problems your voice and start giving solutions your effort. Instead of telling everyone how tired you are, put that time into building a system that helps you rest better. Instead of complaining about the job you hate, spend that same energy learning skills that will open new doors. Instead of replaying how someone hurt you, channel that energy into becoming stronger, healthier, more resilient. That's how you turn drain into shift. And understand this, no one is going to do that shift for you. People might listen to your problems, but they can't carry the weight for you. That's your job, that's your responsibility. And the moment you stop expecting sympathy to fix you is the moment you become unstoppable, because sympathy doesn't build anything. Action does, focus does, discipline does. You want to know why some people command respect the moment they walk into a room? Because they carry themselves with an energy that says, I don't waste my time complaining, I solve. That kind of presence can't be faked. It's built. It's built through the daily discipline of taking the energy you could waste on negativity and channeling it into growth. Every single day, you're either leaking energy or you're building it. And the choice is always yours. So stop draining yourself with words that don't change your situation. Stop rehearsing the same story of pain like it's the only song you know. Stop giving problems more life than they deserve. Shift your energy, redirect it, use it to create, to push, to rise. Because the truth is this, the energy you waste complaining is the same energy you could use to change everything. And the moment you understand that, the moment you take control of where your energy goes, you stop being drained by your problems and you start being driven by them. That's the shift. That's the power. That's how you win. Strength doesn't need an announcement. Power doesn't need a microphone. The people who truly carry weight in this world, the ones you respect, the ones you quietly admire, they're not the ones shouting about how strong they are. They're not broadcasting their struggles, begging for attention, or explaining to everyone how hard their life is. They move in silence. They let their results speak. They let their composure, their calmness, their presence do the talking. And that silence, that's real strength. You see, weakness is loud, insecurity is loud, pain is loud. It needs validation, it needs recognition, it needs people to say, yes, I see you, yes, I hear you. But strength, it's the opposite. Strength doesn't need to be seen to exist. It doesn't need applause. Strength is carrying the weight without asking the world to notice. Strength is solving the problem without narrating every step. And when you live like that, people respect you in a way that words can't buy. Think about the last time you saw someone lose control. In public, shouting, complaining, letting everyone know about their struggle. Did they look strong? Did they look powerful? Or did they look like someone who had lost themselves to their own chaos? Now picture the opposite. Picture someone who's under pressure, but stays calm. Someone who has every reason to explode, but doesn't. Someone who is clearly fighting battles you can't see, yet they stand tall, collected, unshaken. Which one do you respect more? Which one leaves an impression? That's the difference. That's why silence is a weapon. When you don't broadcast your problems, you hold the power. People may wonder what you're going through, but they can't judge you. They can't use it against you. They can't diminish you. All they see is strength. And that mystery, it builds respect. It makes people curious. They look at you and think, how are they holding it together? How are they so composed when life is clearly testing them? That curiosity elevates you. Because while everyone else is explaining their pain, you're demonstrating your resilience. The strongest people don't explain their battles. They show their victories. They let the results speak, because results are undeniable. You don't need to convince anyone when you're winning. You don't need to explain yourself. When you're building, when you're moving forward, when you're solving what others can't, people notice. Even in silence, they notice. And the respect you get from that is deeper than anything sympathy can give you. Sympathy is shallow. Respect is power. Here's the danger: when you constantly announce your problems, you start to believe that talking is progress, but it's not. Talking about solutions is not the same as creating solutions. Posting about your struggles is not the same as overcoming them. And when you confuse the two, you end up stuck, loud, but stagnant. But when you choose silence, when you choose to put your head down and work, every ounce of energy goes into solving, not narrating. And that's where growth happens. That's where transformation happens. It takes discipline to be silent. It takes discipline to say, I don't need the world to see me hurting. I don't need everyone to know my battles. I just need to fight them and win. That kind of discipline builds character. It builds respect, not just from others, but from yourself. Because every time you choose silence over complaining, you're training yourself to be stronger. You're proving to yourself that you don't need external validation. You only need internal strength. And let's be honest, when you finally win, when you finally solve the problem, when you finally come out on the other side, how much sweeter is it when no one even saw you struggling? When people look at you and say, wow, how did they do that? And they have no idea the storm you just survived. That's power. That's impact. Because you didn't just win, you won quietly. And that quiet victory speaks louder than any complaint ever could. Think about history. The most disciplined warriors, leaders, and builders were not the ones shouting their every move. They were strategic. They were measured. They knew that silence protects strength and noise exposes weakness. If you tell everyone your plan, your pain, your pressure, you give them access to your mind. And once they have that access, they can disrupt you. But if you keep it to yourself, no one can interfere. No one can sabotage. Silence keeps your path protected. Some of you don't realize how much energy you waste explaining yourself, explaining why you're tired, explaining why you can't get ahead, explaining why life is unfair. That energy could be going into building solutions, into building strength, into building resilience. You don't need to explain why you're struggling. You need to prove to yourself that you can rise regardless. And you can't do that with words. You can only do it with action. So stop announcing your pain. Stop broadcasting your problems. Stop seeking validation and sympathy. The world doesn't respect words. It respects results. Let your strength be seen in how you carry yourself. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your results do the talking. Because in the end, strength is not what you tell people you have. Strength is what you show when nobody knows what you're going through. And when you start living that way, everything changes. People stop seeing you as someone who needs saving. They start seeing you as someone who can't be broken. You become untouchable. Not because you don't have problems, but because you don't let those problems define you. You solve them quietly, powerfully. And that silence, that discipline, is where true strength lives. Let me make this clear. You are not supposed to fight every battle completely alone, but you are also not supposed to hand your problems to the wrong people. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think that because they shouldn't complain to everyone, the answer is to stay isolated, to carry everything on their own shoulders until they collapse. No, that's not strength. That's pride disguised as strength. Real strength is knowing how to be selective. Real strength is knowing how to choose carefully who you allow into your inner circle. Because not everyone deserves access to your struggle. Not everyone has earned the right to carry a piece of your burden. The truth is, most people will only give you sympathy. They'll nod. They'll say, "I'm so sorry you're going through that." But sympathy doesn't solve anything. Sympathy is like sugar water. It feels sweet in the moment, but it doesn't nourish you. It doesn't build you. It doesn't change your situation. And if you get addicted to it, you'll keep running to people who will pat you on the back, but never push you forward. You don't need that. You don't need people who keep you stuck in your problems by validating your pain, but offering no solutions. What you need are builders, thinkers, problem solvers, people who don't just listen to your problems, but challenge you to rise above them. People who hear your struggle and then say, "All right, what are we going to do about it?" Those are the people who belong in your circle, because those are the people who don't waste your energy. They multiply it. They don't keep you small. They pull you higher. And that's the difference between a circle of sympathy and a circle of solutions. Now, here's the hard part. To build a circle of solutions, you've got to be ruthless about who you let in. That means cutting out the people who only want to sit with you in your misery. You know exactly who they are. The ones who feed off drama. The ones who encourage you to keep replaying your problems because it entertains them or makes them feel better about their own. You don't need that energy in your life. If someone keeps you in the same story instead of helping you write a new one, they are not part of your future. They are anchors disguised as friends. And this applies to family too. Just because someone is close to you by blood doesn't mean they deserve a front row seat to your battles. Sometimes family members can be the worst when it comes to keeping you stuck in old patterns. They'll remind you of your failures. They'll tell you why your goals are too big. They'll love you, yes, but they'll love you in a way that keeps you comfortable, not in a way that pushes you to grow. You've got to recognize that and protect yourself. Building a circle of solutions means seeking out people who have what you want, not materially, but mentally. If you want discipline, find people who live discipline. If you want resilience, find people who have faced storms and come out stronger. If you want growth, put yourself around people who are obsessed with growth. Because the truth is, the energy of your circle will always bleed into you. You can't sit in a room full of complainers and not become one. And you can't sit in a room full of builders without being inspired to build. Your circle is a mirror. Choose wisely. And sometimes the right circle isn't even big. In fact, the most powerful circles are usually small. One or two people who genuinely have your back, who you can trust, who can challenge you without tearing you down. That's enough. Stop thinking you need a crowd. You don't. You need quality, not quantity. You need people who sharpen you, like steel sharpens steel. And you need the humility to accept that sharpening, even when it's uncomfortable. Because real allies don't just comfort you. They confront you. They hold up the mirror and force you to see what you need to change. That's love. That's respect. That's what makes you stronger. And let's be clear, building a circle of solutions also means investing in yourself. Sometimes the person you need is a mentor, a coach, a therapist, someone trained to help you see blind spots you can't see. Don't be too proud to ask for guidance from people who are equipped to give it. That's not weakness, that's intelligence. Weakness is pretending you've got it all figured out while you drown in silence. Strength is knowing when to seek wisdom and having the discipline to apply it. But here's the key. Don't confuse dumping with seeking solutions. Dumping is when you unload your problems just to feel lighter. Seeking solutions is when you share strategically because you want direction. One drains the room, the other elevates it. Always ask yourself before you speak, am I looking for pity or am I looking for progress? Because those two paths lead to very different places. The people around you matter more than you realize. They are either fuel or fire. They will either push you forward or keep you trapped. And you get to decide which one you surround yourself with. If you want to grow, you need people who won't let you sit in your excuses. If you want to rise, you need people who won't let you settle for less. If you want to win, you need people who are obsessed with winning too. So stop chasing sympathy. Stop wasting time with people who only clap for your struggles, but can't contribute to your solutions. Build a circle of strength, of wisdom, of growth. Protect it, nurture it, And if you can't find it, start by being it. Be the person who offers solutions, not just sympathy. Be the person who lifts others, challenges others, sharpens others, because like attracts like. When you become the kind of person who builds, you will naturally attract builders into your life. At the end of the day, your problems are yours to carry, but the people you surround yourself with will determine how heavy they feel. With the wrong circle, even the smallest problem will crush you. With the right circle, even the heaviest burden becomes lighter. So choose wisely. Don't settle for pity. Don't settle for empty comfort. Build a circle of solutions and watch how fast your life begins to change. Life is never going to stop throwing problems at you. Struggles, setbacks, betrayals, challenges, they are part of the game. You don't get to choose whether problems show up, but you do get to choose how you handle them. And that choice makes all the difference. You've heard it tonight. Most people don't care about your problems because they're drowning in their own. And the few who pretend to care, some of them will use your pain against you. If you keep feeding your problems with words, they'll drain your energy until there's nothing left. But if you take that same energy and shift it into action, you become unstoppable. Because strength is not about complaining. It's about silence, about control, about building solutions while everyone else is wasting time explaining their pain. So guard your power, guard your story. Don't hand your struggles to people who can't carry them, who won't solve them, who don't deserve them. And when you do share, share only with those rare few who push you higher, who challenge you to rise, who remind you that you are capable of far more than your problems want you to believe. Build that circle, protect it, value it, because it will shape the person you become. In the end, remember this: your problems do not define you. Your response does. Your silence, your discipline, your solutions, that's what people will remember. That's what will command respect. And that's what will carry you from where you are to where you want to be. So stop giving your problems a voice. Start giving your solutions a life. And the next time the world tests you, don't tell them what you're going through. Show them what you're made of.